Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our annual Veterans Day program. It's a little different this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic and our attempts at keeping everybody safe, including our veterans. Overall, this will be a short virtual program where we're able to hear the wise wisdom of Gary Schmidt, who spent 22 years serving our nation. Before we begin, on behalf of the entire Howard Lake Waverly Winsted High School staff and our stakeholders, I would like to say thank you to all of you that have served, are serving, and to those that have already made the commitment to serve in our armed forces. Also, thank you to the parents and community members that support our servicemen and women. Without your willingness to give the ultimate sacrifice, we would not enjoy the freedoms that we so easily take for granted. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, today's featured speaker is well known here on the Howard Lake Waverly Winsted campus. We all know that every so often, one might hear an air horn go off when walking by his room. We never doubt the belief in and love for his students, just like we have never doubted his love for this country as he spent 22 years in service. Students, staff, and our community have heard stories about his days in the military, and now we get to spend a little time with him on this day of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Mr. Gary Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mix, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really honored to be here today to do the Veterans Day speech. So 76 years ago, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed what many historians considered the greatest social legislation ever passed by the U.S. Congress. It took the horrific cost of bloodshed of World War II to remind many Americans just how in debt is owed to our veterans. In 1932, thousands of World War I veterans camped out in Washington, D.C. to petition their government for bonuses they felt were owed. Their campsite was forcibly overrun by the U.S. Army, and at least 2 veterans were killed by the police. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt told the American Legion National Convention in 1933 that, quote, "No person, because he wore a uniform, must be therefore placed in a special class of beneficiaries over and above other citizens," unquote. While Roosevelt would later prove himself to be a great wartime commander-in-chief, what he and others failed to realize at the time is that veterans were not asking to be part of a special class. They just wanted a shot at the American dream that they fought so hard to defend. Most Americans profess to truly love our veterans, especially at gatherings on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. While their feelings are usually sincere, it is important to remember that our veterans are defending us 365 days a year. The heroism that has been demonstrated time and time again by the veterans from the American Revolution to the global war on terrorism is sometimes unnoticed by those of us who enjoy the security that their sacrifices provided. Army Staff Sergeant Clinton Romesha has seen war at its very worst. While serving as a combat outpost Keating in Afghanistan, he and his comrades were awakened to an attack by an estimated 300 enemy fighters on October 3, 2009. According to his Medal of Honor citation, Staff Sergeant Romesha took out an enemy machine gun team, engaged in taking out a second while he received shrapnel wounds from a rocket-propelled grenade. He continued to fight on. He killed at least 3 other Taliban fighters and directed air support to destroy 30 other enemy fighters. After receiving his highest national military medal, Staff Sergeant Romesha said he felt conflicted. The joy, he said, comes from the recognition of us doing our jobs as soldiers on distant battlefields, but is countered by the constant reminder of the loss of our battle buddies, my soldiers, my friends. Staff Sergeant Romesha's attitude is not hard to find among the living Medal of Honor recipients or many other surviving service members. They will never forget to sacrifice their friends, and neither will the Gold Star families who have to cope with the embrace of their loved ones. The innocence of grieving for their children will be challenged by the dramatic change affecting the balance of security and comfort in their family routine. The hearts of these families will feel the sharp sting of their loss, leaving them only with memories of their loved ones. Life as they know will be much harder from now on. Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from our families, miss the births of our children, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, bake in wild jungles, lose limbs, and far too often lose their lives. Military spouses have had to endure career interruptions, frequent change of address, and a disproportionate share of parental responsibilities. The children will often have to deal with changes in schools, separation from friends, and hardest of all, the uncertainty of whether mom or dad will not live through their next combat tour. Veterans need each other, but more importantly, our country needs veterans. You cannot fight a war without veterans, and while the utopian idea of a society without war is appealing, let us not forget that we have liberated slaves, stopped genocide, and toppled terrorists. Steve Ambrose once wrote, "American wars have been like rungs on a ladder by which it rose to greatness. No other country has triumphed so long, so consistently, or on such a vast scale through our force of arms." It has been often said that without our veterans, Americans would be speaking what we would consider a foreign language. Regardless of your view of history you take, we do know that without our veterans, America would not be America. Those who defend us from our enemies must be supported. No matter where their service was, at home or abroad, we need to serve veterans as well as they serve us, even when the guns have temporarily stopped firing. Veterans don't ask for much. They do not want to be in a special class, and benefits are a mere drop in the bucket compared to the financial and human cost of war. While not all veterans see war, all who served in the military have an express willingness to fight if called to. You can show your support for these great men and women by simply thanking a veteran, visiting a VA hospital, or donating to a veterans program. Historians have said that Dwight D. Eisenhower was prouder of being a soldier than he was of being the president. And while relatively few veterans ever reach the rank of general, pride in one's military service is a bond shared by nearly all who have served. This pride is on display every obituary page in the country where the military service, regardless of how many decades have passed and subsequent achievements reached, is mentioned in the death notice of every deceased veteran. Fewer than 10% of Americans can claim the title of veteran. Far less than 1% of our population is currently defending us in the global war on terrorism. Veterans will give us freedom, security, and the greatest nation on earth. It is impossible to put a price on that. We must remember them, whether they served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard. Whether they were on active duty, reserves, or National Guard, we must appreciate them. Thank you for watching this. God bless our veterans, and God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Ladies and gentlemen, but mainly to our students, before we wrap up today's program, let me give you something to think about. Students, while today may be a day of thanks for our veterans, I challenge you to make every day one of thanks to our veterans. In the store, the mall, the gas station, or anywhere on any day, tell them thank you. Shake their hand, give them a hug, and be truly grateful for what they did and what they have protected. Understand that they were and are willing to fight for our way of life and deserve our appreciation for that sacrifice. Regardless of the current political or world issues, we have our veterans to thank for what we have and will continue to have in the future: freedom. To our veterans, thank you for everything you've done and given to our great nation. Let's have a brief moment of silence to keep in our hearts and minds those that have served, will serve, and those that have given the ultimate sacrifice to defend our freedom and way of life. Again, veterans and those that have supported our veterans, we say thank you for what you've been willing to do for us. Thank you for attending today's virtual program. Please stay safe, stay healthy, stay home if needed, and always stay Laker proud.